Our meeting to order for September. Commission on Architecture and Urban Design. I guess the first order of business would be appointing me as interim chair. I'll entertain a motion. If someone wants to make it.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint you as the interim chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. I guess the first order or second order of business then would be the approval of the meeting minutes from last month.
Roll call.
Oh, I guess I need a roll call on my own approval here.
Well, no, just a roll call of who's here.
Oh, yes. Roll roll call. You'll have to bear with me. I'm not usually in this role. So I guess everyone introduce themselves. Roll call. I'm Dan Need, interim chair.
Ellen Morrow, Commissioner.
John Weisberg, Commissioner.
Brian Haas, Commissioner.
David Whalen, Commissioner.
Juliette Burling, Planning Director.
Dylan Pelton, Historic Preservation Planning Department.
All right. So I guess third order of business will be the approval of last month's meeting minutes. Guess, does anyone want to make a motion?
Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from last month?
All right. I'll make a motion to approve them. All right. All in favor? All right, pass. All right, so looks like we have several determinations of significance and appropriateness. So first on the docket is 4 Travis Avenue. Representative here. Good afternoon. Okay, so if you could speak into the microphone.
Oh, I gotta turn it on. Sorry about that. Nolan Kokoris with Bond Hennington King. I represent the applicant.
Okay. And if you'd like to introduce us to the project or.
Sure. So this property is owned by 15 Travis Ave LLC, and it's associated with Buckingham Manufacturing, which is located across the street from the property. And the interest is in demolishing this house to extend the parking facilities, which come right up to the property line. And I've got another view of the property if it's helpful to see the parking right next door, but that's the goal with this project.
Do we have any more photos?
So this is the first you really get a look at it. In 1950, apparently there was a structure that was auto. It was an auto repair shop, later made into, they put their residential structure in front of the auto place, and that was what it was. It was his house. It was constructed in 1959. It's in an I3 district, which doesn't actually, you're not supposed to build residential housing in an I3 district. But I mean, in 1959, I doubt they cared a whole lot. It's a vinyl clad building. It was wood at one point. But long and short of it, it's not actually a residential structure. It's really not supposed to be there anyways.
Right. Yeah. Typically, I know if it's a historic property, we usually have an issue with parking. So I just want to mention that, but still in mention, I mean,
Yeah,
doesn't
residential.
look architecturally significant to me, nor since it's, in an industrial district. I mean, those are kind of, I'm amenable to.
It wasn't, when did you acquire the property anyways?
I believe it was recently. The past few months ago.
Yeah. And it was sold by I believe it was the woman who was married to the guy who was the auto mechanic. I mean, if you go back through the deeds, it doesn't go back that far. So it might have been her.
Right. If I remember, there wasn't a lot of
No.
title history. So.
Yeah.
And the house itself, not any historical significant architectural style. It's vinyl siding. I don't think it's the original siding on the house. So it's livable, but not a historic property, really.
And in I3 districts, parking lots are allowed. Housing is actually not allowed.
Yeah, I think this is a good exception to the sort of the rule. How does everyone else feel?
Constructed in 1959. I don't know if that falls within our limits of historic, but I wouldn't think it does.
It does just because it's 40 years old. Anything over 40, we have
Mm.
to evaluate. But as far as saying that it's anything important,
Rare.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
When you see attached garage, that kind of is a giveaway that it's probably not historically significant.
I'll simply mention that the commission in the past has requested either a site plan or a sketch drawing depicting what the property is going to look like post demolition.
Right.
I have those with me. I can
Okay, yeah, if you could share those,
provide those. Absolutely.
that'd be helpful.
Because you're constructing or you elongating your parking, you're probably gonna have to go to planning commission anyways for a site plan review.
Correct.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we do have an application
Okay.
pending. And this is the plan that was submitted. I'll pass it
you.
around.
Um.
Was there any consideration handicap parking, or was there enough handicap spaces in the existing lot?
As far as I'm aware, they have sufficient handicap parking. This is primarily to expand number of parking spaces. Total number, I should say.
And it does look like they could make that one end one accessible if they needed to.
That's more of the planning commission's discretion anyways.
All right. Well, I could take a stab at a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the demolition of the property at 4 Travis Avenue. But I do want to state, the factors going into this include it not being a historic structure, them providing plans, it being an industrial district, and it being a residential use in an industrial district and parking being allowed there.
And demos, you motion to make Caud the lead agent.
Oh, yes, yeah, and so I also have to make the real motion is to make Caud lead agency. Consider my previous statements, comments. So, do I have a second?
Second that.
All right, all in favor? All right, now I need to make a motion to make this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? All right, Brian, and all in favor? Aye, all right. So Mary Ellen will go through the guidelines.
One.
Yeah.
Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in change or use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Examples, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare this a negative declaration.
All right. All in favor, or who's second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, do we have to do a roll call there, or, and then I have to do the City of Binghamton historic guidelines as well, right?
I don't think you need a roll call for the negative declaration.
Okay,
Um. And then, yes, we need to do the actual determination of significance.
okay, yep. So, this is for the determination of historic significance. The City of Binghamton guidelines list the following recommendations that address demolitions. Do not disturb historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the City of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or replace. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. A building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The use of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of a street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If the building is active and earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if its return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. And so I think it falls without, if I go back to my previous comments, just in relation to the industrial district and parking being allowed here and it not being historic. So I'd make a motion to approve the demolition. Do I have a second? Give it to Dave. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank
Good
you
to
very
go.
much.
Ooh.
Next case is 45 and 39, Shenango? Both, right? Has a few addresses. Yeah. Is it green?
I'm Tanya with Robinson Design Company, representing Gather Shenango, which is owned by Beacon Management.
If you'd like to introduce your project.
Yes, so this is student housing. There's two buildings. The first one is Beacon Management's office. So they're looking to just put up some window lettering in the center window and then just something to the left of the front door, just stating the name of the office. This one. So there's, I believe, 4 windows across the whole front. So they're just gonna put lettering on 2 windows, which is just a company logo and then phone number.
Dylan, did they go through sort of a consultation with you on this regarding the sizes and?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like when you have a negative space sign like this, it's not completely clear how much of the window it technically takes up.
Right.
But I would assume it's less than 33%.
Yeah.
I mean, when the black sheep was in here, I think it only took up 20% of the window. I think this is probably smaller comparatively.
Yeah,
So-
we actually did shrink it down slightly, so it's about another 7 inches smaller than what you see there.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with the sign. Do you guys have any opinions?
Yep, it's, I think that window's like 27 inches, so the logo might be 18 to 20. Yeah, the window's 27 inches wide, so I think the logo is about 20 inches.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the staff report.
Anyone want to make a motion or?
I'll make a motion to
I'll
approve
do it
the
afterwards.
application as proposed.
All right, do we have a second? I was gonna give it to Mary Ellen, so. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, you're all set.
Thank you. We have one other building,
One
is
other.
that up?
Now that it's been approved, you have to get a sign permit in planning
Okay.
office.
What about for the perforated vinyl?
That's the next case.
Okay.
Mm. So this, the next case is 41 Shenango Street,
Yes.
and they are next door to each other.
I don't think she has to reintroduce herself, but if you do want to describe the project.
So we put together a few different options just to see what you guys would like best for the area. What you see there is perforated vinyl, so you can see out, you just can't see in. You could see in, I guess, if you were really up close with your hands, but it's just for privacy with it being student housing. They've been known to be a little bit sketchy, and with the young kids in there, they were find something that was protect their privacy. That first floor there has like a gym and a common area where the students hang out. And so originally we had covered the whole window until we found out that was not allowed. So we shrunk it down and there's nothing along the bottom and nothing at the top. So it's just eye level across the front of the building. All perforated vinyl. So it's privacy for when you're on the outside.
Trying to remember, didn't we have a similar case come in front of us last year?
It was the spine guy on
Okay.
Court Street.
Just trying to remember how,
I mean, the things that came up were, number one, his window was not, the mullions in between the windows were less than 4 inches, which means it was all basically one window. This is not one window. This is 1, 2, 3, 6 windows. The other things that come up are, can you have some kind of covering over the window where you can't see in, but it's not considered advertising? That is considered a treatment rather than a sign.
Right. That I'm more amenable to.
Yeah.
We did take out most of the wording, so in most of the photos you see, there's just photos of the students and the pictures of like the bedroom, the common area. I think maybe the gym might be in there, and then in the center window, we did put the Gather Shenango, which is the name of the student housing, so we did put that in there. And then the 2 little smaller windows off to the right, those are the only ones I believe that have more than one word.
In terms of, I know like there's some sort of historical appropriateness, I guess, or context for the signage in the district. I don't know. I mean, I'm leaning more towards the top one just because I have a harder time with the fake masonry on the vinyl.
Do you want me to pass these around? This is
Yeah.
actually the whole building, so you can kind of see what
Okay.
it would look like. It makes more sense, I guess, if you could see the whole building.
Light is going to be there?
No, that white, I believe, is a shade, like a pull down shade that they have up right now. That will not be there.
Oh, so it'll be like almost like a dark negative space.
Yes,
Like on
yes.
the
So
first-
that white is not part of the graphic or the design.
Oh, okay. Um.
So just. That's a window. So that's just a glass. That's just glass window. You can see right through it.
But
That's the brick pattern to match the building. So if you look at B or C, those are the two that they were hopefully leaning towards. That is empty. So that's glass. You can see right through it.
Oh,
It's hard to tell in the picture because they had the shades pulled down on there.
The advertising has to be restrained. That's just zoning regulation.
Eye level.
Yes, correct. That's correct. Yeah.
So if you were on a ladder, you'd be able.
If you were on a ladder, you could see, or if you were walking by and you wanted to like
see
jump down underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. I think by our collective reaction, we all
Now,
thought it was
it's different,
the
yeah.
whole window was gonna be perforated vinyl, but that's not the case.
No, definitely not the whole window.
Now, per zoning regulations in 410 and the city charter, you can only actually advertise on 2 of the windows per storefront. So per zoning regulation, you can only advertise on 2 of the windows per storefront.
Which I think is
Zoning deal with
our
that.
center window and the one all the way to the right with the starburst in it. So the center window, if you see like the little green C that has a Gather Shenango logo on it, and then over to the right with the black behind it, which is actually just the window. I think it might have the phone number on it. They're trying to get rid of that, and there's actually treadmills, I believe, behind that, so I think they're just trying to have privacy. So, but. I think they were hoping to get rid of the shades, because they said it doesn't look very professional from the outside, so they were trying to dress it up a little bit and gain some interest from the students.
I mean,
I also believe there's student housing next door, so I think they're trying to make their building look as fun as the building next door, which they just had done not too long ago.
The rest of them have to be.
I'll let you guys look at it first. Oh, you got one? Okay. So I'm kind of favorable to either A or D. I just think with D, I'd also say like maybe a different color scheme that is more, I guess, compatible with the building scheme, like color scheme you see, at least for like the background portion
Okay.
of it.
And we're open to suggestions from you guys. So whatever changes you would like made, we can do that or change. We were just trying to, the brick idea was to try to match the whole top of the building and around it. And I believe they're painting the front of it. I know they painted the building next door, but I'm not sure if they're painting this one as well.
So I was like, even something that matched the sort of the blue-gray trim. That's just one thought. Or the tan of the sort of the window frame,
Okay,
the brick, the sandstone there.
we can change the layout and resubmit it if that's what
Yeah.
you'd like us.
Now I think I'll defer to zoning in terms of number of windows being occupied with signage.
So per zoning, you're allowed 2 advertising signs per frontage. In the windows.
Right.
And the
that would
door,
be-
you can have your little.
They'd be voting on that, right? We do? Okay. I mean, I understand like the intention is privacy, which kind of puts us in a funny spot.
Dylan, does that advertisement rule apply to words or pictures or all of the above?
That's kind of a gray area. Because I mean, if you walk around, you'll see windows that either have a solid color, or they have a photograph, or they have maybe some words in it, but whether you consider that advertising, I don't
Yeah, I was
know.
gonna say, what does advertising mean if they don't have the phone number of the office on the window to call? Then what would they be selling? I'm just
Exactly.
curious, yeah, what is advertising?
It's more like a window treatment than an advertising.
So I would-
Exactly.
I think you could argue the two bubbles, the first bubble and the third bubble or the third window is not
That's
really
what-
advertising. It's like,
We had the top one we had originally before we didn't know about the advertising thing. So then we changed it to just the photos, which is what's on the bottom one, and then
Okay.
took out most of the words. And I think they say like gather, come, play, something like that.
you guys have any strong opinions?
One storefront that comes to mind for me is Courtside. I think they have every window has the name of the business. And I don't think that's the only one down here that has that. So would the advertisement, like John was saying, be the phone number and contact?
Well, I mean, I
and
think
things
you
like
can
that?
argue it would be a phone number if it says live at Shenango, if it has the address, if it has anything pertaining to the building itself. But if it's a photograph of students studying, then it's a photograph.
And would the rules still count? Just out of curiosity, if it was, I know you're looking to get away from this, if it wasn't a window treatment, but if it were something on the inside, blocking, just so you have other ideas, visibility in that, say, midsection, so you don't have someone, peering through in that section of the window. If you put something up on the inside of a picture of a student studying.
I mean, if it's
that still
adhered to the window, that's what's considered a window advertisement, whatever.
So
If
as
it's
long as you put it
behind the window,
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, so.
we
just
have less to
finding
say
you
about it,
another-
yeah.
And
If they wanted to put pictures behind the window in that
Yeah.
spot that's not adhered to the window, maybe it,
we had thought
Works
about
with
that because we can do like printed curtains, but
Mhm.
it would still sort of be like an advertisement because it would be the same design. But like, just to give an example, like when I was down there, I threatened to kill me and then was like coming at me and like kind of chased me across the street. And the lady that was there, that was meeting with me, was like, oh, everything's fine here. And I said, I'm just here to measure the windows and take pictures. And he was like, what'd you say to me? And he's like coming at me. I was like, sir, just taking some pictures. And he's like, you're taking pictures of me? I'm like, nope, just the building. So with the young kids living there, I think they're trying to create a safer feeling area or space for them that those type of people aren't staring in the window, yelling things at them. And especially when you're, if you're in the gym working out there, you see how the kids dress nowadays. So I think they're just, trying to make them feel like this is a good place to live and try to bring more students into it.
All
So
right,
do we
so
have? Yeah, go ahead.
are you looking for, is the commission looking for designs with different colors? Are they good with these designs? Looking for designs that have address the concerns about advertising? What's the commission looking to do here?
So I'm fine with A or D, but would want to discuss some more design specifics. I don't know if anyone has a stronger opinion about B and C.
I like option B. Looks like maybe there's advertisements in 4 windows though, that would need to come down to 2. And I would be good with that option.
Yeah, the window all the way to the right, I think lists the amenities. And that we could get rid of something like that and just put a picture in there.
I do think that concern for privacy and is an issue. So,
So we're okay with the dual-sided treatment. We're just concerned about the number of advertisements at the moment.
I think so, because in the past, the perforated, we had like
Yeah.
through, so.
Okay.
We've approved it before, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think A or D
I mean, I think it's,
aesthetically are
it can
the
be
better
done
option.
tastefully, yeah.
Okay, and D, you were talking about taking, not just D, but any of them, the little window, maybe take that out, you said, or?
It just lists the amenities of what's inside the building, so we could just change that to a photograph so that there weren't words on that. The reason we were trying to stay away from A is because you can still see in through the entire window
Yeah.
everywhere.
Well, do they know what color they're gonna paint the front of the building?
I think it's a dark green, so I think they're just gonna redo it in the same color.
Okay.
And I think Gather Shenango's logo is like a bright green or like a grass green color. So I think they were hoping to stick with that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would be fine with D with like a darker green that would match whatever paint.
front
scheme
of the
you're
building.
using.
Can D?
Yeah,
That's
mean,
We
what I-
can change it to match the tan of the top of the windows to tie in the color of the logo with the building.
you want me to make a motion? Are you guys good or?
I mean,
Oh, yeah, I guess
do you want to,
table it until you provide another design. I think that's maybe what we'll
Yeah.
want to see with like a color choice.
I mean,
Um,
you're basically taking suggestions to come back with a final rendering, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to table this,
Okay. And
contingent.
how long does that? How
Next
long will-
month.
Okay,
I'll give you the date. I don't know. off the top of my head.
okay. And I'll just submit it to you?
Yeah.
Again? Okay.
Can you take a picture of it without the curtains behind them?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Hopefully you
The
won't
only
get
reason
hacked.
we did it like that is because it's hard to, when you can see inside the building and you put the graphics on it, it's a visual distraction, so.
Right,
You're putting your
Okay.
life at risk.
yeah.
Then
All
make
right.
sure the
Mo-
windows are bulletproof, please.
They're very thin actually in the older buildings, but I'll recommend that.
All right, so do I have a second?
Second to table.
All right, all in favor? All right. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
Appreciate it.
Next property is 49 Court Street.
It says Shenango. Sorry about that. I didn't fix that. Sorry.
All right, if you'd like to introduce yourself. and
Yeah,
your
I'm
project.
John Matzo with Matzo Signs, and I think I have to announce that I am a ZBA board member. So, and this is,
Tim Strong with Visions Federal Credit Union.
we are here. We've been trying for quite a while now to get a sign permit for 49 Court Street and also Washington Street also. It's a blade sign. That's the Washington Street one you're looking at right now. And that sign is 8 foot by 2 foot, and they're gonna take down that ugly awning that's up there and whatever other signage is on there. They would like it to be more visible from Washington Street so they can see it and see where the location is and upgrade their signage. And that's what they've been doing at actually all your vision locations, is upgrading their signage to look more professional, I will say, instead of having an awning. And that's the Washington Street one. The one on Court Street, which would be going on the old Citibank building. And that one is 10 foot by 3 foot. And why they would want that one there is so they can get visibility from coming down Court Street, where people, they're hoping more people would see where they're at. Now, the lettering, if I'm not mistaken, turns to white at night. So we would have it's a special blue plex material. It's called Bistro, I think. And colors would be that way now, but when it lights up at night, they light up white, which would be similar to. It's a Bitro, and it looks like this Family Mart, I don't know. And these would be all cut out. It'd be a routed out blade sign, so there's nothing protruding off from the sign itself. And they're illuminated with LEDs. And we tried to conform the new with the old, and the colors would be pretty close to what the building is. As far as the blade signs go, both of them. And kind of use the architectural drawing that the building has on it too, with the caps on top and bottom. Well, it would have to be through bolted through the building, but we'd like to go through where the mortar seams are. And that's what we would like to do, and that's why we came up with the length we did, because we don't want to interrupt the structure itself of the block that's there.
Yeah.
The sandstone, yeah. No, and that way we could go through the mortar seams on it. And then if Visions ever did leave, when I was talking with a few of other people, they would definitely repair the building, whatever, if they ever left. But I understand they signed a large contract with Martuska to stay there for quite a while.
So I know in the past, we have issue with internally lit illuminated signs. I know that's been kind of,
Well, if
Tripping
you look
point.
at,
Typically, they're directly on top of the ATM though, or the 24 hour
right,
reserve.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we did make an exception, I think, for the bank across the street, kitty corner, so. And that's more like I guess we used like a safety caveat for that,
I mean, the signs wouldn't be lit all night. They would have certain hours they would be lit till.
I mean, from the rendering, it looks like it blends in quite well. Was there a staff report? What was the sort of,
I mean, typically you're supposed to put a sign where they were supposed to be meant to be a sign, especially on historic buildings. Obviously, this is not where it was meant to be.
well, I'm trying to think with the facade there. Where would a sign normally?
As a side,
It would be over the top where it already is, National Bank, right here.
Okay.
I had no idea that there was divisions there, and I'm always looking. for
And this is,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the reason for it, because
Yeah.
people don't know there's divisions there.
And we have, I actually brought this to economic development, and Sarah Glow said that they want to put a sign like in this alleyway, somewhere in the middle.
Which I think. Didn't they show? Don't they, is this for two signs or just a single?
This is for two
This
signs.
sign-
This is-
So this sign is for the, right here on this
Right.
building. The other sign is farther down the alleyway, like right here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sign,
So Dylan, you're.
Yeah,
saying
the
maybe-
one's the Metro Center and the other one was the old First City Bank building. Yes,
So you're saying something similar, but like a freestanding sign in the courtyard that would be visible?
Well, I mean, what we were discussing in the courtyard is there's been over the course of the last like year and a half, businesses that have come and gone, but they wanted some kind of posting in the front of the lead up to the Metro Center for signage.
yeah,
And we haven't, nothing was ever done with it, but we could press to not put it on the historic building and rather than that, erect some kind of flagpole or put it on a street lamp, or
that,
if we could put it on something else, put it somewhere else rather than on the building.
right. I mean, this is,
And I absolutely agree. It needs a sign out front
yeah,
because a lot of people don't know there's divisions in that alleyway. You're right.
absolutely.
But putting it on a historic building is difficult.
right.
Where it
That's-
is, where
Especially
they-
considering this building. I mean, the one in the courtyard, I mean,
No,
I
that's
think-
not considered historic according to code,
Right.
but the front one on the First City Bank building is.
yeah. So, I mean, I personally would be in favor of some sort of detached structure from the building, even if it was like a very similar sign.
And the reason we talked to the city is it would be on city property and the city would have to be involved in it, insurance, all that stuff. But they're willing to erect a sign that's not on the building in that corridor.
And you're not really gonna see it coming down up and down Court Street. That's the problem with it. I mean.
We haven't, that's the thing is we haven't designed where it would go. Technically we have to get fire trucks into that alleyway.
Yes, you do.
So we would have to figure out what post it would be put on or if something would need to be erected. Yeah. This. Yeah, I'll give you the staff report.
ZBA has approved it, yes. The ZBA approved both signs. Install living in there. Install living in there. I've been in the sign business for 54 years. It's never been here. We've been trying to get the sign permit for over 8 months now and get in front of Caud Commission. Like I said, the ZBA approved it. We've been there to install another sign another way. I've been doing this for 54 years. There's no other way to install a sign on a wall. You do have to penetrate a wall no matter what you're doing.
If you put it on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, you have to get a fire truck down the alleyway on Washington Street. Where would you plan on putting that pole?
We didn't get that far into looking into that.
Yeah, and how long will that take? Another 8 to 10 months?
I
That's
don't
what
know.
I'm saying.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Visions is a big part of the community here too. And yeah, I'd really hate to see them leave. I know they've signed a contract, but they've been, like I said, we've been really fighting to get this for the last 8 months. And this is, we finally came to this meeting. We went in front of the ZBA and we were approved.
Yeah, but it's one of two buildings of that style in the entire county. So we have to take that into consideration.
I realize that.
Yeah.
But you also want to have businesses in the city and then you're not working with them.
So I think running through the guidelines, I mean, there's a couple things not in your favor, but there's a few things in your favor. Where it's historically intended to be located. I think that actually, if we put it where it was historically located, that would be worse. In some sense with this building, because it's on the entablature of the building. I know installed in a manner that does not damage or obscure materials. Now, if you're putting it in the mortar, I mean, this is where, I mean, I kind of defer to Dylan on this one, but in terms of obscuring, it is tucked behind that column that's attached to the building, so at least from one side of like your kind of your core court street and Shenango Street, it's not. I mean, it is kind of hidden actually, so I don't think it's obscuring from that view shed. Signs flush with the building facade or perpendicular are preferred, which it's perpendicular. Simple and easy to read. I think an argument could be made there that it is. Complicated logos, I think was the next one. I don't think it's a complicated logo. Signage above first floors is discouraged. And then colors, font size should be carefully considered. I think that's fine. Generally moving, changing, flashing signs, don't have to worry about that. Hanging signs are preferred, it looks like. So I mean, I don't, it's technically hangs off the side, but it's not, it's attached the whole way. Neon signs, don't have to worry about that. Panel box signs illuminated from inside are not appropriate in a historic context. This is where we've kind of tripped up on the past with other like local businesses. I know we've made exceptions in the past as well. Painted window sides, don't have to worry about that. Freestanding signs are typically not appropriated for commercial areas. So out of those items, I think the illuminated aspect would be kind of the issue of contention, and then also if it's obscuring, and in a sort of a historically intended area for the sign. So I think with those three issues, we should come to a determination for them, and if we have issues with any of those three, we need to give them recommendations.
Quick question, drawing a blank. Is it on the National Register?
Offhand, I'm not sure. It's in the historic district and it's the landmark structure.
I didn't know if we got a couple that are National Register.
And if you look back to the 30s through the
Yeah, it's on the
70s.
state and national register.
It is, it's on the National too.
The illumination piece would apply to both of them, right? Both signs?
I would assume the blade sign that's I mean, you're taking down the awning sign, right?
Yeah,
And that's next to a 24-hour ATM, correct?
that's,
Yeah, the courtyard one, I don't think is.
Yeah, that
I
is.
think we're fine there probably. I mean, as long as the other members of the board.
Is there
agree.
somewhere, I know we have an issue.
Is it actually illuminated or is it a reflection?
it's an internally illuminated,
Oh, there
but
is
it's
an
not.
internal
Yeah,
light?
yeah, there'd
Okay.
be illuminated with LEDs,
That's
Gotcha.
another issue.
and it only draws like a half an amp.
I know we
doesn't
have to
draw
be able
much
to get
power.
fire trucks down. Is there a spot in the middle? Because I know the fire trucks have to be able to go to either side.
That's,
or do
I
they-
mean, that's where the discussion, we were discussing putting some kind of sign in the middle there for the businesses in that alleyway.
Right at the beginning. You know, where they always used to put the Christmas tree and stuff.
Yeah.
When I was here.
Exactly.
And, you know, just a historic type of sign that says Visions is down there, whatever else is down there. Is there something that could,
That could be placed there. I mean, I would assume so. We were working on it and then it just kind of fell flat. And I don't know why.
I
It wasn't my
I
office.
know they want to get this done. They've been fighting it a while,
Yeah.
but a historic building that's on the National Registry is another problem.
Do you have a picture of the facade? Different.
like a direct shot.
Or even that top one.
Another guideline that sticks out to me is that signage above first floors is discouraged. Would you want the sign to be that high?
It wouldn't be
on-
above the first floor. It'd be
up on
right
the-
above the first, just at the first floor.
Right, but up on that, the third and fourth panel of that building, like if you look at that Keller Williams sign, that's kind of at like the second and third panel. That might be more at an elevation that drivers might be looking at. And it might be, yeah, but how often do you have trucks there?
I think that sign's more eye level. When you're standing at that, Keller Williams is more eye level versus an elevated sign, because it's even with the door.
I mean, the right, on the right side, there's a
Ah,
red
sorry.
sign about halfway up.
Is that on the building or is that on a utility pole?
And that might be less obstructive to
Yeah.
the architecture of the building also.
One thing, I don't think it would interfere with the fire trucks if it was in that same location, just offset like a foot or two from the building, similar to this arrangement. I don't.
They didn't want it offset from the building. Dylan didn't actually. They wanted it to look closer to the building, so we didn't have a framework sticking out there. Otherwise, you'd have to put a framework out there. And that was the reason why it was setting back in where it was.
I understand.
Right.
Trying to come up with that.
And right here, if you look right here on the edge there, this is a recessed pilaster, so it is an architectural element to the building.
One other thing for the commission to consider, while Visions has certainly put in a lot of effort in terms of designing the sign to match the structure and to try and accommodate everything. How do you approve this and deal with future requests for installations of this kind on other historic buildings in the future?
Would the city entertain a similar freestanding sign somewhere in the entryway, similar to what you were talking about?
We talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean specifically for Visions, or would it be a collective?
I mean, honestly, either or would probably be acceptable. We were looking for a spot for it, and that's kind of where it got
Right.
left.
The problem with the Washington Street corridor down through there are cellars underneath parts of those buildings. So to put something freestanding down there would be pretty difficult. I mean, you'd have to cut out because I have to be careful when I bring a truck down through there. When I used to work on the Ellis Brothers sign, I have to stay more in the middle.
I mean, my first preference would be a freestanding sign offset slightly from the building. Similar location. That's number one. Number two, I do have more of an issue with the illuminated on the street face there.
Of course, it has quite a few illuminated signs on it.
In that, but
I mean, so you're gonna
They're
tell
out
one
of-
person they can't do it and the next person can?
well, we say no to everyone on that. People just.
I'm
put
just
them
saying,
up,
but
and
there
then
are
the enforcement
illuminated signs
issue.
on Court Street.
Right, that's an enforcement issue, not our issue. The second option, a non-illuminated hanging sign, I don't know if it was like more historically to the historic guidelines we see,
More historical.
right, like
shaped
you
sign.
standard see with like an actual hung sign there. And it not being backlit. I don't know how other people feel about that. We have to, we have our guidelines that's the reason our commission is here and. like,
I understand your
that
guidelines.
we get-
I mean, I went through the whole book.
The next person will come in with a less tasteful sign than you have, and then they'll just be like, well, this is an issue of. Where does the taste begin and end? So that's.
like to your point, John, there's plenty of illuminated signs on Court Street, but to our point, we have the precedent of not approving internally illuminated signs, which has been done quite a bit this year already.
Yeah, but if you look from the 30, you talk about historical, you go back to the 30s when Court Street was full of signs, 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way through the 70s. And then when the 80 and urban renewal came in and built this Metro Center, they pretty much destroyed downtown Binghamton by doing that. And that's when a lot of businesses failed and left, and then the signs came down. I mean, Marine Midland Bank had one there for years. It was a time and temp sign, and so
That-
then the bank across the street, and then you had Rudolph Jewelers there. You had Sisson's downtown Binghamton, and I'm not sure if everybody remembers those. I'm sure you don't. But, you know, Fowler, Dick and Walker was downtown Binghamton. They had large signs on their building. Boscov's is lit. That's an illuminated sign. You go down, Shenango Street has some, but then Water Street. You've got Nurt's with their neon sign. You even go down Shenango Street. We got the approval for Little Venice sign, and that was a large sign. That was all neon. We did. I mean, they're all over the city. It's not the part that I'm trying to give you a hard time. It's the part that they're there. They did exist. And they talk about historic. Signs are historic. And especially if you can build them the right way. Neon started in 1890. The first neon sign was in New York City. And actually it was France, and then the next one went to New York City. So
Which I agree. There's a lot,
Yes.
there's a lot of signs,
you've got the Greyhound station down there.
but and that Greyhound sign can't come down.
Pardon?
That Greyhound sign that's there, that's historic itself.
Yes, it does. My dad built that
But
sign.
the sign you're putting up,
Well, that's why we're trying to conform the new with the old and trying to make it look historic. Do you have another suggestion?
and that sign does not look historic on that building.
Okay,
And that building is national, state, and local.
okay.
And that makes that even a little harder. I mean, we want visions to be seen down there. We want that, but we have to follow guidelines,
Oh, I understand.
and that is not a historic looking sign on that building. That building is one of what, two you said? Of that style and structure?
Of that style in the county, yeah, it's one or two.
But then they have that ugly red panel on the front of it. Red
That's
and
on the
white.
other building.
No,
That's
there's the ugly red sign right there on the front that reads
Yeah,
Metro
that's
Center.
attached to the building next door.
That's attached to that building.
Because
No.
that's not a.
No, the red and white sign, the panel sign that's on the
Is
front of
attached
this,
to the Markushka building next door.
that is not the Marchuska building. The red and white down below to your left.
So you're looking at that feature.
That reads Metro Center. To
Right
your left.
there, it's
No,
attached
the
to
one to
that.
your left. That's on the wall. Above the car, to your left.
That one? Yeah. Address signs are allowed. That's the address.
His sign does blend better than that one.
I mean, that's up to visions, what they want me to do. It's.
It would come back to us, but I mean, do you want to work with me and Sarah and maybe the engineering department to see if we can resolve this without having it on the building? Okay. And
No.
if we can't find a spot for it, then we'll come back to. Yeah. Okay. Sure, absolutely.
So what can we do about the Washington Street one? Because that's technically not in the historic.
Are you
district.
talking about that one?
Yeah,
We could probably.
I think we could,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way.
So,
Yeah. And until you remove the awning, yeah, the awnings.
all right, does anyone want to make a motion?
I will motion to approve this sign here or to move forward with this.
Within the courtyard and
Yeah,
then
courtyard.
revisit and consult with the city.
I'll
Probably
second that
just
mo- well,
table it for now
Okay,
and then see where the discussions go.
well, if they want,
Well,
I
this
think
is,
they might
I think
wanna
this
get
is a
that
motion
constructed.
to accept the first sign.
Yeah,
and
accept the first, so we'll do the acceptance and then we'll table the other one.
okay,
Yeah.
Motion to accept this sign here on Washington Street.
I'll
the
second,
courtyard.
I'll second that.
all in favor? All right, and then I'll make a motion to table the sign that is on Shenango Street on the front facade. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
All right, well, thank you
Yeah,
for your
thank
time. We
And
appreciate
we
it.
really do. We want to work with you on that. You know, and I know Dylan will.
Pardon? Yeah, it's nice looking.
It's not, yeah, it's not bad taste. I just,
Yeah, no, I understand the building concept and all. It's where would you be able to place a sign there that doesn't interfere with the fire department? That's where I'm concerned with, because I know we can't put a sign on a roof anymore unless it's 5 stories or above.
Right.
So I get that.
But we're trying to prevent what happened when they did urban renewal.
Yo, I know. I know when they did urban renewal, they really destroyed downtown.
So
Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
So for a precursor, the rest of these are pretty much city demos. These are the Anzru properties that we acquired in the closing. We have specific ones, some addresses where people were living there under a lease or a rental agreement. And when Anzru got rid of the properties and we got them, it was just kind of left open-ended. So I believe 2 of them are still lived in. And we're going to find a place, because obviously they're displaced, to put them before we evict them and demolish the structure. But there's 2 addresses specifically that are like that. So Anzru's MO was to buy a property, completely gut the entire structure, as in there are no walls, there's no wiring, there's nothing. And a lot of them are like that. Some of them, 1 or 2 of them I couldn't get in because there was issues with squatters, and I'm not going to do anything that would endanger my personal life. So 22, the first one is 22 Clark. The city's wants to demo that. There's an interior fire. It doesn't really have many of the windows left. It's unfortunate because it is historic, but it's so damaged. I think it's kind of beyond saving at this point. If you
Out of
look,
Curiosity was the purpose of gutting them all to be able.
renovate them.
I gotcha, without having to go through Caud?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if it's only internally, they don't really have to go through Caud.
Got
Most of these aren't historic in nature by any stretch of the imagination.
They're just in the district.
This one is unfortunate because it is old, but I took a picture of the front of the house. If you see right here, the fire was so bad, it melted like half of the windows on the front. So it was pretty intense. And I believe, from what I was told, there was more than 1 fire. There's actually more like 2.
well, guess can start here by making a motion to establish Caud as lead agency.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous. I'll make a motion to declare this unlisted action. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, so Mary Ellen, do you want to go through the list? I don't think we need to discuss this too much. It is fire damaged and
Yep.
in decrepit condition.
I live near that one. Trust me. I don't like, it's not in good shape. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, I'll second. Roll call or all in favor? Aye, okay. Unanimous. All right, I'll run through the City of Binghamton Historic Guidelines. City of Binghamton Historic Guidelines provide the following recommendations that address demolitions. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the City of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. The building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on overall character of the street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable effort can be made to maintain its structural integrity. The building is active and earning a reasonable economic return. It is appropriate to demolish the building. It is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if its return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. I think I guess we do have to ask is what's the post use of this?
All the city demolitions under Anzer's properties right now are considered green space till
And they're
otherwise.
not intended to be parking?
No.
Okay. Is that to the satisfaction of everyone here? Okay, then I say the proposed demo is not in conflict and I make a motion to approve the demolition. Do I have a second? All right, John, and then all in favor? Aye.
So Bob, back me up on this. Now, I've been told by Tito and by various people that when we make a determination, the motion is to say that we determine it to be not historically significant, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what our motion should read from now on.
Okay.
Not historically significant
Not instead of,
or historically significant.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we don't actually, this board doesn't actually issue demo permits or anything. It's just either you're finding it historically significant or not.
And there has been
Time.
confusion in the past that we've said that you could demolish the property, which they have to go through code first. So there's other steps they have to take after this.
All right. So I think the next property. All right, so we have 2 Fayette Street. Is there anything?
So 2 Fayette is historically, it's a fairly old structure. It was for a while, it was a one person residential structure. It developed into several apartments. It is historic, although all of the windows have been changed out. They're all vinyl replacement. They're all broken as well. It's asphalt siding. There is this is it right here. It existed before these other structures that will come up later were there. It's fairly run down. The back of the property, obviously all the windows are smashed out. This is a garage that's not really on any map. And it's kind of slapdash in the back there. We're gonna have to demolish that too. But that's a look at the property like writ large.
And that's gutted inside.
I don't know. It's one of the ones that I really wasn't gonna pry too hard to get into. Yeah, the address for this structure isn't just 2, it's 2 and 4 Fayette Street. Because it is 4 apartments. If you look at the bank on the outside right here, there's 4 meters. Find out. Tell you that.
It was condemned a while ago,
Okay.
back in 2021.
I think that's important.
Yeah, every window. Yeah. I could not tell you that.
Right. Any discussion or does this, everyone think it's decrepit condition?
And to give you a little background, just in case you need a little more, the reason it was condemned is was leaking water and wastewater lines in the basement. And the structure was not watertight. So I'm assuming that condition was not fixed and there's probably a decent amount of mold in there.
Yeah, and rotted floorboards. Sure.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
All right, Mary Ellen, did you want to run through? Or yeah, we didn't. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Motion to declare.
I'll make a motion to declare Caud as the reviewing agency. Do I have a second? Brian, all right, all in favor? Aye, unanimous. I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous. Okay, now you can run through.
Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adapted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase to the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, do we have a second? Dave, all in favor? Aye. All right, I'll run through the City of Binghamton guidelines. City of Binghamton Historic Guidelines provide the following recommendations that address demolitions. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship. It would be difficult to replace or impossible to replicate. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period, construction, or historic associations. Building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. Reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain structural integrity. If a historic building is active and is earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. I would say it does not, I guess, it's not in disagreement with any of these conditions. I'll make a motion to declare this not historically significant. Do we have a second? John, all in favor? Aye, unanimous. Right.
Dylan, just for educating me, what type of siding you said it had? You said it had. You mentioned the siding,
Asphalt shingle.
It's asphalt shingle.
thank you, an
Yeah.
asphalt shingle. Okay.
They tried to vinylize the bottom a little bit. Whenever the boat's sinking, they try to slap something up to show progress. So you see a lot of like a side of the building is vinylized and then the rest of it's not. So this is the building next door. This is 4.5 Fayette Street. This is actually, if you look at the map, 3 separate buildings with 3 separate addresses. This is 4.5, this is 6, this is 6.5. This is the front of the first of the 2 buildings. They're vinylized, they're very straightforward. They have rolled roofs, they had asphalt and rolled rubber. As far as I can tell, they were built somewhere in 1915 from the records. You could see here in 1918, they didn't exist. Like none of it did. This is the back half of the 2 Fayette property where you can see like this part of the building, which is the back building. Right here, you can see into this stairwell. This whole wall has been torn down. There are no windows in this building. They've all been torn out. It's asphalt shingle sided. Hey, there's a window. Never mind. They're not all broken out. And this is the front of one of the apartment buildings. I was going to get closer, but then I realized that somebody was in there. So I'm not going to.
All right. We can wrap it.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. The back building is completely shot.
Yeah, this property was also condemned there. It's hard to tell exactly how many units no longer have water due to broken pipes that were leaking, leading to water shutoffs. I don't believe there's any functioning heat at any of the buildings. There was a mention of some fire damage to one or more of them on the interior. It is, again, fairly extensive history of housing and property maintenance issues with all of the properties or all the buildings on the property.
Take that into account in voting. Oh yeah, I'll make a motion to declare Caud as lead agency. Do I have a second? Dave, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? John? All in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous. I'm gonna run through.
I'm on. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action act as an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact A, public and private water supplies, B, public and private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? All right, unanimous. All right, I'll run through the City of Binghamton historic guidelines. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the City of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting, character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. A building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the use of the property. The use of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on overall character. Street, do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a historic building is active and is earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if its return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. I don't see any conflict with these. I make a motion to declare the structure not historically significant. Do I have a second? John, all right, all in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous. Okay, next.
So this structure is 42 Fayette Street. This is one that is currently occupied by somebody. It does have some historical components still to the house, although it's been vinylized. It was clapboard. All the windows up here are replacements. The ones down here are 2/2. Again, this is one that starts out with one address and then it goes to 2 addresses. The first in 1898, this is attached and it doesn't have the front. And I really don't believe that these are the same structures exactly. So when I did the research for the residents, I picked it up at 1918. Obviously some of the parts fallen off top. The porch is in pretty bad disrepair. Again, I don't have any interior photos because people are living there, so I don't know what the interior of this property is like.
Was it condemned?
Not that I know of.
It looks like the second story, there's a pretty big penetration into the structure.
I mean, from the exterior, I don't know where the window is. Not really sure. From the street, can't really see it, so I don't know. I would assume so though, yeah. And obviously the asphalt roof is extremely old and falling apart.
Yeah. Is there the historic features that are on there? Would the city be amenable to somehow recovering them?
The fact of the matter is it's hard to find because it used to be volunteer base and then the volunteers would come in and sign a waiver. And then they would come and they would tear off kind of whatever they wanted. And then that fell by the wayside. I'm not really sure why, but it's not really commonplace anymore. taking any historical component out of a house. Like if you're gonna destroy a house and it had beautiful interior doors from the 1800s, past would come in and just take them. They would sign a waiver, but they would go in and they would take the historical aspects of the house out of the house. Yeah, architectural salvage, yeah. In terms of what is historically significant that's left, probably the posts on the front, and I mean, maybe the fascia boards and the cornicing in the corners, but I don't know. I know for getting on a ladder and going up and getting that stuff, that's probably out of the scope of, I don't even know if we get a waiver for that.
Okay, I don't know if there's any, I mean, it looks pretty decrepit to me, especially the,
So we can't do anything,
Well, we can
Not
determine that
us.
it's
I mean, we
not
can do
historically
this.
significant.
but you have to evict who's in there. Are they actually?
I mean, like I said, our thing here is to say this is historically significant or not. What happens with it, from what my understanding is, if there are people in there that are displaced because they're not really under a lease or a rental agreement, we will find somewhere for them to go before it's demolished, obviously.
Yeah, the city will address
The city takes care, yeah.
whatever the occupant situation is prior to demo. The other thing that came up was, I guess there have been some water leaks inside the building that have caused damage. That I guess Code was able to get into at least one of the units at some point.
But the only reason I'm asking is because at that point, when they leave, before you demo it, pass could go in then, right? Because it's.
Actually, yeah.
Pass. Preservation Association of the Southern Tier.
okay, well, I mean, we could recommend that.
Mhm.
While declaring it. Okay, so no one's opposed. I'm going to make a motion to declare Caud lead agency. Do I have a second? All right, Mary Ellen, all in favor? Unanimous? Get a vote there, John? Yeah, all in favor.
Oh.
All right. I'm just picking on you. I did. I saw a little flash over there in the right.
I'm gonna be the first.
All right, yeah, that's right. So, I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? Wow, that's. Brian. All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous. Okay, Mary Ellen.
Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, we have a second. They'll stand up here. All right, Dave, all in favor? Aye. All right, I will go through the city's historic guidelines. Do not demolish a historic structure or do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to a historic setting the character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult to or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. A building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a historic building is active and is earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. All right, I don't see it in conflict with these. I make a motion to declare the structure not historically significant. Do I have a second? Brian, all right, all in favor? All right, we're good.
So this property is 58 Glenwood. It was 38. I think in the agenda I put the wrong address, but it actually was 38 at some particular point. I don't know if you're familiar with the building. It's board and batten in the front. It was a business for a long time. This is before it was constructed in 1918. 1915, it was a restaurant. It's what it looked like. Or in 1950. This is what it looks like now. From the exterior, it looks okay as buildings go. But on the interior, there was this is the side of the building. You see the wood clapboard. There was a fire, obviously, up here. There's tons of garbage in the building. This is the first floor. So it has had fairly extensive damage. The upstairs apartment isn't horrible, but it still has some problems with water seepage on the second floor.
It was one of those where I was like looking at the outside and I was like, but I think that interior is pretty rough shape.
Does it have any historical work in it?
If you look
Past.
around in the upstairs apartment, I mean, this was made in, I'm guessing around the 20s. These pillars became popular in the 30s. Behind here, there's actually a little tiny bookcase, which is kind of cool. But I mean, that's about it. There's no real architectural things throughout the. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Roughly the same time period. Yeah, about the 20s.
Say the same thing with past, if they can get in there, that's great to get those two features, but other than that. Yeah, it was in the general discussion, I think, so. We'll make sure Dylan follows through with that. All
It
right,
would
so-
not be the first time I've ripped something out of a house. so.
There you go. Nice. So I'll make a motion to declare Caud lead agency. Do I have a second? Dave, all right, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. I'll make a motion to declare an unlisted action. This an unlisted action. Mary Ellen, all in favor? Aye. Except for Brian. No vote. Okay, there we go. Unanimous. All right, you wanna run us through it?
Here we go. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, we have a second? I'll second it. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. All right. I'll run through the city guidelines. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. Building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a historic building is active and earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if its return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. I think with the state of the interior and the damage that was shown, I don't think this is in conflict. And I'm making a motion to declare this not a historically significant structure. Do I have a second? All right, John, all in favor? Aye. All right.
So this is a house. It is older. It is on Henry Street. At some point, it was made into a commercial storefront, which ended up being a post grocery store in the end. It's in pretty rough shape. It has asphalt shingles at the top. Those are fascia boards. Those are age appropriate windows. Of these windows with the riveting on the outside, there's only 2 of them left on the house. This is the interior, which was fairly destroyed from what I could tell. Again, I heard somebody upstairs, so I didn't look too hard. This is the side of the building, it's asphalt. This is the other window right here. It's decorative. This is the side of the building from the, I believe it's the east side. These are replacement windows. This is clapboard. This is partial asphalt shingle. And this is the view from the interior. Like all of this is garbage right here. From what I can tell, most of the building is just filled with garbage.
Right. Any word condemned about that?
It was not condemned, but it has been sitting on the city's vacant building registry for almost 2 years.
I think some of the interior does look pretty rough.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, looking at just the interior of it, I would say it's in pretty decrepit condition. Then do you want to take us away, Mary Ellen? Or wait, no, I have to declare things. I make a declaration, or I make a motion to declare or establish Caud as lead agency. Do I have a second? All right, Dave, all in favor? All right. All right, I make a motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? Mary Ellen, all in favor? Aye, except for Dave. All right. Unanimous.
My
Take us away.
turn. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. To the historic guidelines, do not demolish structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to a historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult to or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. Buildings should not be demolished without the definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of a street. Do not demolish a building where reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a historic building is active and earning a reasonable economic return, it's not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. I don't see this as in conflict with any of these. I make a motion to declare this structure not historically significant. Do I have a second? All right, Dave, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
For the record, Dan has an obligation as well as this, and he's trying to. Not really, they're on the agenda, so. They're all pretty self-explanatory. So this is the next building. It was an odd building to begin with because it didn't really have that great of a description anywhere. This is the original building. It says auto and then Vendicist. It really doesn't have much of an address until about 1933, and even then it was vacant. Up till 1946, it was only really inhabited for a few years up until 1947. That's when it was turned into an apartment building. To look at it, this is the apartment building. It looks like it has potential as a structure, but the more you go through it, the more you realize how destroyed it actually is. This is the back half of the structure, the older part of the structure. It's a Tudor style. Yeah, if I don't know what that is. I have the foggiest idea. I looked it up and I tried to find it and it doesn't, I'm not sure what it means. This is the back half of the structure. This is as you walk in, this is the first part, the stucco part. And some of the damage they did to it. Again, they tried to rip absolutely everything out of it that they could. There's peeling paint. There's no ceilings really in any of it.
This also an answer route or?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's most of the wall to that building. So this is the stucco. This up here with all the stuff on the ground, this is the stucco building that's in the front that was attached in 1947, whatever it was. And this is the older building behind it, which was completely ripped apart. There's really nothing left in that part of the building. There's just a few walls. If you were to look at it, there are several spots where you can look out and see daylight in the back half of the building. Which is unfortunate because obviously it was a extremely nice, well-to-do Tudor structure at one point. And the bottom windows, although the replacement have like stone lintels and stuff like that. And although it does have a lot of interesting architectural acumen, shall we say, like there's a giant holes everywhere in that structure. And it doesn't have any of the original walls really left, so. I mean, the outside really is kind of tremendously interesting. But behind those walls, there's nothing left. It's down to this. You can see through it up here.
Yeah, the roof isn't watertight. There's no functioning electric or gas service that I know of to the property. It's been sitting on our vacant registry list for about 3.5 years. Well, the other thing was at one time there was work being done without permits that the city shut down. So some of the work that may have been done might have to get undone anyway, if you wanted to try and restore this.
Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
We do the city guideline.
Okay.
I didn't know if you're.
So this is a fairly old structure. It's on the 1898 map. It was always a simple two-family dwelling. It doesn't have too many historical components. The windows are 2/2. They weren't changed. This was one of the ones that somebody was living in, so I didn't hang around too long. Plus, he didn't seem like he liked me staring at his building. It's fairly basic. It has a frieze on the top, like most of the simple dwellings did at the time. It was always a two-family flat. So it's a fairly basic structure. No, and from what I can tell, it really didn't have any historical elements that would put it at the top of any list for historical significance.
All right, and then I guess we'll all in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous. Take us away, Mary Ellen.
Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? Are unanimous? All right, I'll run through the city guidelines. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting, character of district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. A building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the use of the property. The use of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. When a historic building is active and earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be best and highest use. I don't see any conflict with these. I make a motion to declare this structure historically insignificant. Do I have a second? John, all in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous.
So the next structure is basically the garage that either did or didn't go to a primary structure. I don't know when exactly it was built, but it's built out of CMUs and it has like, this is old vinyl siding, asphalt roof. I didn't have the keys to it, but City of Binghamton owns it and they want to demolish the garage.
I don't know how much discussion we need on this one unless someone has some strong opinion. Probably jump right in.
Is there anything else on the property?
No, there's not.
Nothing,
That's
just
it.
that old garage.
It's the garage.
All right, I'll make a motion to declare Caud as lead agency. Do I have a second? All right, Brian, you guys are gonna get arm workouts today. Oh, all in favor? Aye, unanimous. Motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? Brian, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, take us away.
Okay. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level or traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, do we have a second? All right, John, all in favor? Aye. I'll run through the historic guidelines now. So do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. Buildings should never be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The use of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a historic building is active and is earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the best and highest use. I don't see this in conflict with any of these, so I make a motion to declare this historically insignificant. Do I have a second? John, all in favor? Aye. All right.
Okay, wait. Before, We go on to the next one. I just have one question. Can we go back to one and I asked the question, the one on Matthews?
I think that's one I have some reservations about, so.
Is that the Tudor one?
That's the apartment building.
Yeah, the Tudor one. So what you're talking about?
Yeah.
What about it?
I just have, did we ever try to sell that? Or,
I don't know if there was any attempt to sell it. I know that the mayor's office and a bunch of the departments reviewed each of the properties to figure out which ones we could salvage and sell and which ones we didn't think we were gonna be able to get anything for. And again, the problem with this one was just it sat vacant for a long time in disrepair, and it's led to a lot of issues on the inside. I mean, obviously it was gutted prior to anything starting, but after that gutting, it's again, basically sat empty for 3 years with water coming in through various locations. The inside isn't, but if you can get the economic return for it, I mean, I'll tell you straight up that
But I'm just saying, economic return is not one of
Yeah,
the
it's-
factors. I'm just trying to play by the rules we set out for ourselves.
no, I know, but in terms of like. One of the factors is there any sort of economic return you can get from the building, right? I mean, that is in the guidelines in terms of you shouldn't destroy one that can make an economic return. So I'm not saying like. All I'm saying is that you really couldn't generate an economic return from this. Like you can't lease this out today. You probably can't lease it out in 6 months with the amount of renovation work that would need to be done to it. This building,
Like this 6 years. So redoing the roof, so I don't see that you couldn't get an economic return from it. And economic return isn't the highest and best use. None of that stuff is a factor as to whether it's historically significant, according to the rules that he reads every time.
sure.
So, but I'm not sure what her questions are. It does look like it could be an absolutely beautiful building. You just need to remember that you can't, rent apartments out for $300 and expect there to be an economic return.
and no, I was just asking if we tried to sell it to that
Yeah.
hit me,
I mean, we could.
because
can
I
we
know what
reopen
we've
it and
done
just
with
table
Someone's
it?
gotta take $1 million and put it in there.
more.
More, okay, yeah, thanks.
I mean, I-
$1 million.
I wouldn't, if it's possible, mind reopening and getting John Darrow's opinion on this.
Opinion on this.
Does
Yeah,
seem a
it
little-
is.
And certainly if someone was interested in it, you can make an offer to purchase through the mayor's office.
But that doesn't
Again,
matter whether it's historically significant.
No, just as
I
a
do-
matter of like public information, if someone feels that they can, do something with this
in-
property, they're welcome to make an offer
In
for
the
it.
past,
We
where,
tell other people though they couldn't demolish it.
right, but in the past where I
necessarily.
think it kind of overrides is when it's like an actual safety issue. I know in the past that's been a caveat where even if it does look historically, oh, wow, this is great, if it can't be salvaged, that's where we get kind of push past it, but I mean, it is such a beautiful structure. This one, I might want to, if it's possible to reopen it, can we table it to get, just have a further discussion, especially with like John Darrow.
I mean, you could certainly make a motion to basically reopen and hold it over.
Okay. So, I make a motion to reopen, what's the property number?
This I believe is,
And I didn't prompt her to.
No,
come back to me.
I mean, that was
But
one,
I was
two, or,
playing one of my errands, thinking about it.
193 Matthew Street.
Yeah, 1/3,
133 Matthew Street.
193.
199 Matthew Street.
No, the only reason I was asking that is it hit me while I was reading these. I'm very familiar with the Masonic Temple. And how many times we've tried to do that, and I get it's the same situation here. I just was wondering if we had ever tried to sell it. I know we tried to sell the Masonic Temple like 3 or 4 times while I worked here. And every time it was bought, it wound up too cost prohibitive for people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, to truly renovate this, I mean, there's two caveats to this structure is that it's not one building, it's two. Number one, there's the back half that's the Tudor, that's the historically pretty significant building, and then there's the front that's attached to it, which isn't.
Nothing.
I mean, it's basically a stucco large apartment building. It was built in the
That's the only
fifties.
thing I was asking is because I know what's happened
Yeah.
with Masonic Temple of Doom.
So. All right, so I guess we'll table it for our next session.
Was there a vote on the
Yeah,
motion?
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, John, all in favor? Aye. All right, unanimous. This one looks slow.
I believe this is the next one.
All right.
So 31 Travis is on Travis Avenue. The one earlier that we did was in the same tract of land, so it is in the I3 district, same as the other one. Heavy industrial. It's farther down the street. It has foundational problems because this concrete, the cement mix that was used in the early 1900s, and it was never that great because they always added too much aggregate, and the aggregate they added was never one solid size. So it has a tendency to rip apart over time. The interior of the house, there's water damage all over the place. The floors are caving in. Like it's from the outside, obviously it's pretty rough to begin with, and it doesn't get better once you go inside and look around.
Okay, this one looks a little more straightforward. I'll make a motion to declare Caud lead agency. Do I have a second? Dave, all right, all in favor? Aye, unanimous. I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action. Do I have a second? Brian, all in favor? Aye. All right, this way.
Okay. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in the adverse change to natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Therefore, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration.
All right, we have, I'll second that, I guess. All in favor? All right, I'll run through the city guidelines. Do not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. Do not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting of setting and character of a district. Do not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. Do not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. The building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. Do not demolish a building when reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. If a building is active and is earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the highest and best use. In this property, I do not see any conflict. I make a motion to declare this historically insignificant. Can I get a second? All right, all in favor? All right. Dave? All right, unanimous? All right, this one, I have a feeling,
So this structure is 182 Holly Street. It is right next door to the downtown, the school that's down there. It obviously has a Boart's roof, it has dentals, it has cornices, it has molding. It is fairly significant historically on the exterior, although the siding has likely been replaced particle. But the interior to the structure has for the most part been completely gutted. There's no walls, there's no wiring, there's no anything. A couple of the load-bearing walls have been compromised. They cut through the studs. This is the original staircase in the front. It goes up.
I mean, is this one we might want to consider tabling? Even without running through all the historic features, I'd see this pretty parallel to the one on Matthew.
I mean, it's definitely historically an interesting building. It does have some components that are left. And nobody will ever say that no building is beyond redemption, so. I mean, we can hold it over and for discussion too, if you want.
How does everyone feel about that? Well, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's no downside for the city to make an effort to sell these or entertain offers. I mean, I know there's an emphasis especially on low income housing. So if there are any initiatives or incentives that can be offered to developers in conjunction with an offering.
Well,
to-
many of these have had a lot of damage
Right,
because they've
that's-
been left like
that's where it's
this.
tough, but
I
the
mean,
damage-
severe damage that's,
Yeah, so I guess it would start with maybe a structural engineering
and
report. I don't know if
it's-
that's something the city can,
Yeah, too, I was just going.
right.
right. Yeah, well, I think that's where it's confusing because I think according to the state, they can't rule on interiors. But I believe we can actually make comment.
When I asked Shippo, like, how do we define what would be historically significant to us? He just kind of went, well, that's up to you.
Yeah, this commission can look at things like interior craftsmanship as part of its consideration as to whether or not something's historic. So if you take something like the Phelps Mansion, where you look at the interior and there's a ton of intricate woodwork and stuff that's been done in masonry, that's something that can be considered as part of being the historical significance that makes up that building, along with everything else. You can still find it historic. And with the economic piece, basically the way you look at the economic piece is, yeah, I understand. Like with the economic piece, it's not, oh, can it generate return, right? Like, of course, you could take a building that's down to the studs and turn it into a building that's generating an economic return. In theory, at least. I think where the board really, or where the commissioners really needs to look is, can you do something with it today? Is there something where you mean you can't rent this building out today? You might be able to rent it out in 6 months to a year with the significant or sell. Again, the mayor's office went over these with whoever and kind of looked and said, we think we can sell certain ones. We don't think we can sell other ones. I don't know if there were any significant structural issues that were noted other than what Dylan just mentioned. I know this was the subject of a stop work order for illegal work that was done at the property. I don't know what the extent of that work was and whether that had to do with structural stuff or not. So, yeah, I mean, of course, we can table it and kind of get some more information about what the thought was.
And John being kind of like the longest serving member and seeing structural issues and sort of the balance between where do we draw the line between very unique features like this and the other building that we are tabling versus demolition.
Some of these,
think that's
I mean, this one has a nice stairwell, a historic type stairwell, which can be taken out by past.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that I would say with this building are the roof is unique. There's very few second empire roofs in Binghamton.
Okay.
And the second part being the stairwell is still intact.
Right.
The second story bay window is obviously it was replaced, but it's old. It's obviously over 100 years old.
But those can be taken out and used elsewhere too. Those can be saved.
But
the building
potentially.
itself, you know, and
Staircases
you
are
know,
really tricky.
a lot more.
Yeah.
I know there were a lot more
Aaron
properties
Houseman
owned
Yeah.
would be
by
upset.
this individual. I know there were more owned by that. So these are the ones I'm assuming these are the ones that city decided, since we've taken them back, we can't do anything with them, which I understand. And we want to.
I mean, from my perspective, I go on evaluating, the history of the house, the structure of the house, where it is, explaining the house. As far as who owns it, the bidding, all of that stuff, I don't do any of that stuff.
Right, but knowing what's happened to these houses.
And certainly if anyone knows someone that's interested in purchasing any of these, like I said, feel free, submit an offer to the mayor's office.
And I know you guys have been trying to sell.
All right, so I'll make a motion to table this. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Well, looks like we're done. Oh.
I believe that is the last one.
Okay.
So a few items, other business, I. Oh, Shona. Let's see, this is Shona. So this is 80 Main Street. It's the Salvation Church, and they're having problems with a roof. So if anybody has any information, anybody who would be interested in trying to get some kind of grant to repair it, that would be good because the roof isn't going to get any better. And it's not severely compromised, but obviously it's leaking into and it's getting into all the masonry on the inside. This is the very top. I was able to go into the church and actually physically go to the roof, and it's brick lined with limestone veneer. But I mean, it's a lacy building. This is the exterior. This is some of the stone that's eroded away. And if you take your finger across it, it comes off with sand on it. So it's like fairly significant at this point. There's also 80 Main Street. You can see how smooth the rocks are. All that's just falling off. And it's pretty much throughout all the exterior of the building. That's the roof from up top. They had a guy who fixed it years ago, and I don't think he did anything, to be perfectly honest, looking at it. These are the gates. They kind of need repair. They could be probably painted, would be better. This is the other issue, is that this is the exterior wall on the other side. It's a historic wall, but obviously it's fallen apart. This is you can see through it right here. But John had spoken of this several times about the fence in the church. This is kind of the state of things as it is now. I'm gonna try to get maybe BOCES will repair this wall. Otherwise, obviously, the church doesn't have money to fix this. Yeah. I think, I want to say it was Sanford. Because Truman was the first one that's towards Front Street, and then this would be the second. And he did the Methodist church across the street. Yeah, he said something wrong with him. But so that's the state of 80 Main Street. They're looking for money and trying to get repairs for that building. So if you know a guy, ask him.
Have it? Do I have to make a motion to relinquish?
Maybe, I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get them to do, they've reached out to Preserve New York. They've reached out to a couple of offices. And they're kind of stuck in the grant process in that I don't know if they really know how to write a grant or how to go about it. And I have a feeling they came to us first. Like, I don't know if the first board action council. I know the thing that I told them was that you need an engineering report. Like, an engineer has to sign off on this stuff and say in a letter that it needs X, Y, and Z. That's kind of where the grant process starts. And from what I know, they still haven't done that. So I don't know.
Do I have to step down as interim chair or is that just?
No,
Okay.
just motion to adjourn.
All right, I make a motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Aye, all right. Meeting adjourned.